We're 9 minutes late, folks. Sorry about that. It's Wednesday night, June, what is it, 19th today? I better look. It's the 18th, June 18th, 2025. This is show number 240. I am Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. Our guest tonight is Dr. Gilda Carle, and we've been messing with her sound and video connection for like 20 minutes, but we finally got it, we think. So we'll find out. I just want to give you a quick rundown before we put her on, what we got coming up here. Thursday night, Jennifer Oliver O'Connor, our old friend, writer from redstate.com. She's joining us for, it's Juneteenth tomorrow, and I thought she would be particularly fitting to put on because she's an angry white woman, and she isn't. But that's my joke, and she loves it. Monday we have Michael McNamara. He's written a book called From Trauma to Joy. He's a former U.S. Marine. He served in Iraq, and so you might be able to guess what his book is about. Tuesday we got Salvador Litvak. He's a Jewish humorist and comedian, and God knows the timing could not be better about what Jews find funny. Just like, there we go. I'm just gonna come straight out and say it because they've been buoyed by their sense of humor for millennia, and so we're gonna find out why that is. So that's gonna be interesting. Wednesday the 25th, our old friend Larry Newman is here, bail bondsman extraordinaire and Bigfoot investigator, and I'm sure we'll talk about Bigfoot and all the people he's managed to capture via the bail bondsmanship, and also he will probably bitch about liberals as he usually does, and we find it very entertaining. I hope you do too. Thursday, the 26th, it's going to be really interesting. L.A. Marzulli is going to be here. It's a guy I wanted to have on the show for a long time. He's a paranormal investigator. I don't know how many books he's written, 24, 30, about all sorts of stuff, UFOs, ghosts. He's done quite a few documentaries too. This guy's been very, very prolific. And so we're going to have him on the show talking about weird stuff. And we're taking calls tonight. The phone lines are not open. Holy buckets. Okay, hold on just a second here. Now you're going to hear the sexy little British woman. We're going to open the phone lines.
Ready to connect.
There we go.
Click connect to show now.
Okay, we're connected.
You are connected as the host. Welcome, host.
I'm the host,
you
not
are
you.
now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface.
Okay, so the number's on the bottom of the screen, 325 call Jim, 325-225-5546. If you have any questions for Dr. Gilda, and I have a lot, so I'm sure that you might too. Anyway, let's put her on right now. Okay, Dr. Gilda, can you hear me? Hold on just a second. Can you hear me? Oh, hold on. All right, try again.
Okay, here I am.
Okay, yep, you're here, and we can hear you. It's working. We got it working. All right, I didn't even have a chance to ask you, your last name is pronounced Carl, right?
Carl, yes, but the media seems to have dropped my last name. It's just Dr. Gilda.
You've been around forever. I mean, and no offense, I'm not trying to
Don't
date you.
remind me.
Yeah, yeah. So you got your start on the Sally Jesse Raphael show, is that right?
Yes, and Geraldo and so many talks. Every talk show that was around, I was doing.
And those are the people my generation, so I understand that. But I don't know if a lot of other people, younger people would not know who those people are. But
well, they will understand that 20th Century Fox came to me and offered me a pilot for my own TV show, syndicated TV show. So that was a big deal, and that was pretty nice.
Did you like doing it?
I loved helping people. We made some major progress, and most of the audience was female. And we made major progress in getting people to understand that being abused is not okay, getting them to understand that being locked in their homes by their husbands was not okay. Being beaten up was not okay. So for that, I was very, very happy to do that.
I'm going to skip ahead here, but this is pertinent to your new book, which is called Real Men Don't Go Woke. And I had the cover I was going to put on the screen, but when we had these problems,
Here,
I took it off. So there you go. Right. That's the cover. You get on Amazon, and we will put a link up to it on our show blog. So you can go to jimandnight.com after we're done here, and you can order if you want. Okay. So of course, the premise of the book is that basically men have been emasculated. If I can sum that up in a word or a sentence. But conversely with that, and you just touched on this too, and forgive me, I'm not trying to make fun of the subject. My old friend Don Zorro was on Monday. There's a few people I have on the show like once a month, just because they're so damn entertaining. And he was on. He went on this huge screed about older married women. Which, of course, I've been married.
What did he say?
Well, I've been married 36 years, and we both agreed basically.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. But they're all pretty much alike. That's the thing.
In what way?
Well, you've touched on this in a blog post of yours, and this is what I want to address about the fact that men have a tendency to get divorced and remarried quickly or repartnered anyway. And my point is, and he totally agreed with me. My point is, why they're all the same. At least all the straight ones are.
Well, a study recently was done, and it found that men need relationships more than women do. So there.
Yeah. Does that surprise anybody? I don't know. It just doesn't surprise me.
Not me. Not me. But I also know of women who look at the obits every single day to find out which guy has died and which guy is available and what they can do to find the man of their dreams who has just lost his wife.
Yeah. And that brings me to my question, and that is, you're talking about, do we still have your sound there? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the thing, there was that book years ago, and this also dates me too, but what the hell, I'm old. Smart Women, Stupid Choices. And then you were talking about your pilot about the women being basically beat up and imprisoned by their husbands or their boyfriends. That's not smart behavior. I don't, so no, I'm not trying to make light of this, because the thing is,
well, the women that we met on the talk shows thought it was very smart because they were in survival mode. They had never heard of thrival mode, which is a word that I invented, but they never heard of thriving. All they knew was to be involved with a man and survive.
So, and is that because you need to be involved with a man at all costs? Is that the reason?
Well, for many women, that has been the case.
Do you think that has been behavior has been kind of unlearned or modified with newer generations? Are the younger women smarter?
I think the younger women are smarter to some extent, but not necessarily so smart. For example, when I wrote this book, this is my 19th book. So I've been around the block.
Yeah, I know. It's very impressive. I have to tell you, very impressive. 19 books.
Well, thank you. But most of the other books, 2 of them were business books, because I also teach MBA students. But the rest of them were self-help books for women. And the editors always told me that men don't read self-help. So I said, okay, I listened to what the editors told me. But then I got a message. I was working with women again and again and again. And I wrote this one book called Don't Lie on Your Back for a Guy Who Doesn't Have Yours. And the women were telling me, and this is after I was a love doc on MTV. And the women were coming to me and saying, but I gave him everything. And I don't understand. Why did he dump me? I said, bingo. that's because you did give him everything. What did you give yourself? And so I was talking on deaf ears, and I wrote this book and talking about make sure that a man has your back. But as I was doing all this research, I found that men don't have their own backs. And I said, uh-oh. So I meditated and I asked God, I said, what am I supposed to do now? I need to save our men. And that's when I got the idea to write Real Men Don't Go Woke. The suicide rate is scary as can be.
Yeah.
Men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women are. I keep losing this screen. Wait,
That's okay.
I'm coming back.
We can see you, and besides, I'm not that good looking. You don't need to look at me.
Okay. Okay. So I wrote this book to help men, and it's not a self-help. One reviewer called it a love letter for men. It's not put down in any way, but it pinpoints.
Well, I have to stop you for a second.
Men do.
If it's not self-help, what kind of help is it?
It's an understanding of the behaviors that men and women, because I don't let women off the hook about this either, but the behaviors that men and women are going through. But because I've been writing for the tabloids all these years, I started and I continued writing about names everybody knows. And I talk about, for example, Will Smith. He bottled his anger up for so many years. And then all of a sudden we saw what happened at the award where he just lost it all. And he went ahead and slapped Chris Rock. And that's what happens when anybody, male or female, holds their emotions in. And like a warm bottle of champagne, all of a sudden, you shake it and it goes pop. And he didn't even realize what had happened. And that's typical of what happens with rage.
Oh man, I got so many questions here. First of all, do you think that this whole scenario with men has changed remarkably in the last 10, 15, 20 years?
Changed? How do you mean that?
Okay, well, it seems like the political climate has changed, and there's been, your book is basically partly about an assault on masculinity, which a lot of people call now toxic masculinity. And I can't agree.
Well,
what?
Well, Eddie, a man walks out the door and he's called toxic. Come on, guys, that ain't the truth. That's not what happens. But automatically he's turned toxic. So what happens is that he's afraid to open his mouth. He stays silent. Women are always complaining that husbands don't talk to them. They go out on dates. The guys don't share their emotions. Well, how are they going to share their emotions when they're put down, they're canceled, they're castrated? What kind of an idiot would share his emotions after that?
Yeah, well, hold it. You have to address this too. And this is what Don was talking about on Monday, about the fact that men and women seem to be intrinsically interested in different things. And one reason men won't share their emotions on a date is they're just out to have a good time. They don't really give a crap,
Well, that's not entirely true.
Okay, so tell me I'm wrong. Yeah.
They may be out for a good time, but they need to be heard. And when they are not heard, that's when they shut down. Nobody's listening to me anyway. He's not hearing me. She doesn't want to hear. The kids don't want to hear about me. And every time I open my mouth, I am squashed. So they shut up. So isn't this interesting? So when I took my book, and again, this is not the first book I wrote. I took my book to this great agent in New York, and she said, they will not publish an anti-woke book. And the book had a different title. So I said, well, if that's the case, I'm going to put woke in the title, and I'm publishing it myself. And then I made the subtitle, "The Book They Would Not Publish, period. The Truth That Must Be Told."
Yeah.
And that's when I told all the truth out there about the celebrities they know. People know these people. They don't know who the head of their state is, but they know the celebrities' names.
Yeah.
And I thought the only way I am going to get to be heard is by talking in language they're familiar with. Bingo! It has really touched nerves. One man said because of this book, he didn't commit suicide.
So what do you think it says about the publishing industry that they want to publish this?
Oh, well, the first 2 pages of the book was devoted to them. And I exposed this nonsense because guess who is in charge of the publishing and our freedom of speech? It's women who are woke and they're in their 30s. They are the editors.
Yeah.
And guess what the men are doing? The men of that age are moving toward conservatism.
No shit.
No shit. That's right. So the women, now I do counseling on my website, drgilda.com.
I do counseling on my counseling on my television show. Go ahead.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So the women are all coming to me and saying, I can't find a guy. And I'm saying to the women, how are you going to find a guy if you keep canceling him and castrating him? What do you expect?
Yeah. So honestly, what do they expect? It doesn't make any rational sense to me. I don't understand.
No, it makes no rational sense. They think that Prince Charming is going to pound through their door and rescue them from what? We don't even know.
All right, I'm going to run let me run a theory by you, because this is where I think this has changed in the last 20 years. I would say, and I'm trying, this is equilibrium here. Women and men are crazy at different parts of their lives. Men are crazy in the first part of the adulthood because they're literally, if you don't mind my using a little vernacular, they're run by their balls. You know, they're thinking with their penis, and men do really, really stupid things just for, you know, just for, let me be blunt, just for vagina, right? Okay, so men.
And you think that's only at the beginning of their life?
Well, no.
Get out. No,
okay.
No,
all right,
no.
hold it. Just a second. Okay.
They could be 100 years old and they're still looking
so
for
right.
pussy.
You tell me if you disagree with this. So that's my point is going to be, by the time they get around 50 and their sex drive starts to wane, their mind clears up a little bit. So they come all right.
Well,
all right. You tell me, am I wrong?
Then they see the doctor and he gives them testosterone, and then they think they're Mighty Mouse. But what they don't know is that the women are also taking testosterone. Oh, are they in for a shockaroo?
Oh my God, I'm full of shit.
Well, I know what I'm told.
All right. Conversely, so I'm going to finish this. Conversely, women seem to be relatively stable until they hit menopause, and then after menopause, everything, their minds go to hell. It's like,
well, that's not entirely true either.
All right.
Women are not relatively stable. They are still looking for Prince Charming, and in the book, I talk about how men want honey. Women want money. So the poor schnooks who are not making a dime can't get a date, or they can't get laid. They can't do anything. And they feel really bad. So what do? They join the woke generation. And that's where they have no spine, no voice, they don't speak up. And women, the ones who like using silly putty, women love that for 2 minutes. And then they're on the phone with me. Dr. Gilda, what am I supposed to do? I can't find any of these guys. And they're not men. Well, what do you expect? You did it, ladies.
Well, you know, and you actually addressed this in some blog post or something I read where you were talking about.
Oh, I addressed it all over the place.
No, you're talking about temporary satisfaction. And that's that's kind of a big deal with me personally, because that's a real problem among humanity. People have a tendency to gravitate towards short-term satisfaction without thinking past, what's going to happen next.
Well, they don't realize that they're asking for the moon and they can't even get out off the ground. I mean, they just, everybody wants more, more, more. That
Right.
four-letter word has taken over everything.
Right.
When is enough enough?
You tell me. I don't
When are
know.
your breasts big enough? When is your penis big enough?
Yeah.
I have a friend who's doing penis enhancements. That is the only answer to making you feel whole. You've got more than a problem with your penis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I want, in my mind, I want my penis to be about as big as a Lincoln Continental. That's how big it should be.
And you are not alone, sir.
No, I'm not. I know that. I know. No, we're crazy humans. We're nuts.
We are nuts. We are nuts. But we have also been believers in Hollywood, smoke and mirrors. And if you have a bigger car, if you have a bigger, if you have bigger breasts, if you have a bigger butt, thank you, Kardashians. If you have that, then you will find nirvana. Well, good luck, honey.
Yeah, but you're addressing something here that I think is really positive. And I'm going to use women as an example just because I'm the observer, but I'm sure there's a male correlation about the fact that, getting back to that thing, smart women, stupid choices. And then you talk about and this really bothers me, Gilda, about the fact that you listen to women and they're always talking about how beautiful they all are. And let's face it, half of them aren't. And then
most of us are not so beautiful.
No, that's
we take
right.
up our makeup and we just look like anybody.
That's right. And the thing is, there are a few of us, a tiny percentage, that actually are that beautiful. I've actually known some of those people, and the thing is, and yeah, they have an advantage over the rest of society. They do. And people,
that's what you think. That's not true.
Well, okay.
Go
ahead.
They have a superficial advantage. But when we get older, our beauty fades.
Yes.
And then these models, I have worked with a lot of models, and then the models look around and say, "Oh my God, is that all there is?"
Yes, that's right. Well, a wise woman, I think, would know that was coming, but most of them do seem not to. It's like,
No, you never think you're getting older.
Okay. I am.
No, you don't think you're going to get older when you're 16 or 17.
Yeah, that's true.
You think you're always going to have perfect skin.
That's true.
Perfect everything. And that's not the truth.
Yeah, I was in my 20s. I had the privilege of dating a professional model who was literally one of the most beautiful women on the planet. And she is now 77. And she kept her looks till she was 70. I found that pretty amazing. But the reason I bring that up is because I'm really amazed at how well she dealt with basically the losing her looks. You get older.
That is incredible.
Yes, it is.
She's one of the minority.
She is. I know, and that's actually the reason I brought that up. It's like she's been very, very well, for lack of a better term, stoic about it. But I can't. I'm certainly not going to talk about that in front of her. I still know her. I still know this woman. Yeah, I'm sure if you lived that way that long, I'm sure it must be devastating.
I think it must be because everybody has always focused on her looks, not her IQ, not her EQ, not anything but her looks.
Right.
And if that goes, then one has to reflect, what is my identity? And that could be tragic for some.
Yeah.
And this is what men are going through now. Where is my identity? This whole thing about, am I toxic? Am I woke? And they're like rag dolls being pulled one side to another side. And they don't know enough yet. They haven't had the kind of work done on themselves that the way women have. Women go to therapy. Women have their girlfriends. Men will not do that. Men won't sit with their friends and say, "Oh, I am so heartbroken. My last relationship broke up." They won't do that.
Oh,
So
Gilda,
now it's up to,
you were talking about the number of men that commit suicide. Another
oh, it's,
statistic, I talk about this on the show constantly, was even one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. 40% of all American men in a recent survey said they don't have a single close friend. I find this astonishing.
and the amount of men who are expressing loneliness has skyrocketed. Loneliness and depression are skyrocketing. And it's not only in the United States. In Japan, they had to put a minister of loneliness into office because people are so lonely.
So is this a recent phenomenon? If so, why?
Well, it's recently captured in the stats that we know. But I don't think we ever talked about this early on.
So let's talk about it right now. What do you think is the base cause of this?
Well, I think, again, it has to do with the nucleus of who we are, and that's our identity. If the whole world is calling you toxic, and I see 10-year-old boys committing suicide because it's already filtered down into their gut that they are worthless. A girl doesn't pay them any attention. A bully picks on them. My life is over. I might as well end it all. And I had a book signing. I live in Scottsdale now. And I had a book signing for Real Men Don't Go Woke. The place was mobbed. And I talked about male suicide. And I talked about suicide filtering now down to men. And people looked at me like I had two heads. Everybody left into their fine lives because Scottsdale is a beautiful area to live in. And the next day I heard from a woman in tears. Her best friend had just lost her 13-year-old son who had committed suicide while we were at the book signing.
Oh, God.
She said this could not have been more perfect as an example to tell people that this is what is happening, guys. It brought it home.
That is so tragic. It's unbelievable.
And with everything to live for, and here is this young boy living in one of the most beautiful areas in the whole United States, and he ended it all. 13 years old.
Well, you'd agree with me. It's hard to tell a 13-year-old kid that their life isn't always going to be that way. That's the real tragic part about it.
Well, if Hollywood is painting everything in smoke and mirrors and everything's going to be wonderful, la-di-da, you can't have any pain. You can't have any wounds. And yet, good parenting today would necessitate telling our kids that, it's the bad times that make you stronger for the good times.
Do you think social media has played into this at all?
Oh, yes. So much. We know that Instagram has been affecting women, but now young boys want pec implants and penises that are larger than life. I mean, they can't have enough musculature. And, it's horrifying because everybody is comparing themselves to magazine covers. One young woman said to me, I know I'm cute, I know I'm pretty, but I don't look like the magazine covers. And I said, honey, I have worked with these models. These models don't look like the magazine covers. They have 14 pounds of makeup on their faces.
Right. And a bunch of lights.
and lighting.
I have a bunch of lights in the studio just to make me look like 10 years younger.
Well, you know the deal.
I do. Yeah, I do. And there's also the very famous quote by Cary Grant where he was, in his later years, he was a business executive for Revlon, and he was at he was at a conference, and he asked, so he was supposed to sign in, and the woman said, "What's your name?" She said, I'm Cary Grant," and she said, "You don't look like Cary Grant," and he said, "Madam, no one looks like Cary Grant."
I love this. Well, you see, I try to tell these young girls that some of these images on these front covers are computer generated anyway. They are not real people.
Right. All right. Now you have to explain something to me that I've always wondered about and I don't understand. What is with the insecurity of young women? It seems like it's almost like they're born with it. I don't understand it.
Oh, they live for the mirror. I have 15-year-old triplet nieces. So I don't have it once. I don't have it twice. I have it 3 times. It's always, oh, how do I look at Gilda? Oh, let's take another picture. It's the cell phones, it's the selfies, and it's the makeup and skincare that they're interested in. Because they've been fed this from all the social media and all of Hollywood, and everybody is supposed to be perfect.
Hypothetically, if you kept your kids away from television and movies and social media, do you think they wouldn't think that way? Or is it just something that's intrinsically built in?
Good luck.
Well, that's right.
I know parents
hypothetically.
I know parents who have said, no, you're not on social media. You cannot go on TikTok. You cannot go on Instagram. And then they go to their friends' houses.
Yeah, right.
So they know about Instagram. They know about TikTok.
Yeah, it's like my friends are trying to keep toy guns away from their little boys. Well, sooner or later, this becomes a toy gun,
That's right.
Doesn't matter.
You can't fight the tide, but what you can fight is the value system out there that has gone so awry. You've got to tell your kids what values really are important.
You're a fascinating woman.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So, what drove you to get into this whole field anyway?
What, the men field?
No. Just basically, it's like, well, I actually looked. I have to ask you. I looked for this on your. It does say on your website that you're a quote unquote psychologist, but you seem to be so much more than a psychologist.
No, I'm not a psychologist.
Oh,
no, my PhD is in educational leadership, because when I graduated from college, I was all of 20 years old, and I was teaching in the South Bronx, and that's what gave me my moxie. I was called on television. I was called the Judge Judy of relationships, and so I learned from the kids about street smarts. And then, and what I wanted to do was become a principal and a school superintendent. I was too young. At the point at which I had gotten my doctorate, I was all of 30. Nobody would hire me. And so I became a college professor, and I did that, and then television discovered me. But in between that, I took all those street smarts, and I was in corporate America on Wall Street to Main Street, teaching major corporate executives in how to do street smarts without getting shut down. So everything we learn at the very start can be applied. If you look and you look at your background and you see what the positives are that you got from your life.
So I bet they brought you on Wall Street. I bet they brought you into the corporate realm because the single biggest problem that I foresee when it comes to like corporate branding is authenticity, and they're always trying to fake this shit, and when you fake it, it never works.
You cannot say, and that's why they kept bringing me back, because I'm so real. I don't do scripts. People are saying to me, well, you could do this, you could do this, you could do. You remember this? You remember the show Billions? Dr. Wendy Rhodes, who was a performance coach?
No, actually, I don't.
She
Sorry.
went in. Okay, this was on Showtime, Showtime or HBO, I don't remember. And she was in the corporations, heavy duty men, all men, who were cursing and drinking and drugging, and they were making billions. And so their corporations loved them. And so she was the shrink who went in and talked to them straight talk, just like I did in corporate America with South Bronx Moxie. And they heard it and they listened. And suddenly the bottom lines were improving.
Yeah. You're talking about men who are making money and now they're making more money.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
The bottom lines, every time there was a problem with the bottom line, they would call me in. And it was so miraculous. And I remember when I was selling one of my programs to one corporate executive, he said, I said to him, everybody's going to come in and feel so much better about themselves. He said, well, I don't give a damn how they feel about themselves. And me, with all moxie, said, oh, yes, you do. He wrote me a 6-figure check, and all of a sudden, the bottom line started improving. Every division in that company asked me to do the same for them that I had done for his department.
So what?
But I knew that I knew what I was talking about.
What do you think about this thing with Dylan Mulvaney and the Bud Light scenario? It seems to me like one of the stupidest things ever. What was that?
It was what part of it do you ask me if I think what I think about?
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you. So first of all, there's the woman who made the decision to do this. Like, what's she thinking?
Well, if she's a woman, I don't know what she. I don't know.
Just a second. I just want to point out to the viewers, you said that. I didn't.
And I can say that because I am a woman.
That's right.
See, I can get away with a certain things that you guys can't get away with.
That's right. I know that.
I know that. Matter of fact, I had this discussion with Bo Dietl at Fox News when we were having some party and we were at the bar. And I said, you say things on air that I wouldn't dare say on Fox News. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, Bo, you cursed the other night. You said blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, I guess I did. I said, I couldn't get away with that. Well, just the way that is now, especially with this book, Real Men Don't Go Woke, I'm getting away with a lot more. But I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
And everybody knows I'm telling the truth.
Right.
You know what? I recently was made spokesperson for the International Council for Men and Boys.
I was going to ask you about that. Did that come from writing the book?
I wrote the book, and then one of my friends said, did you ever hear about this organization? And I said, no. So I went to a few of their meetings, and I spoke up, and they couldn't believe this. Who was this woman? And they were mostly men. And I said, and let me tell you something, guys. This and this and this is what's happening to our men. And then the president of the organization said, would you do interviews for us? And here I am talking to you, Jim.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But let's get back. I really want to get back to the Bud Light thing. So now, I mean, maybe you don't want, if you don't want to like, badmouth another female executive, I understand. But my thing with this is that she wanted to dump.
I'll badmouth anybody who deserves it.
All right. Okay. You've already got a pretty stable, audience or, or customer base there, right?
I do.
Right.
I do.
And well, she did too. And so why would you you're literally like throwing them away for a segment of the populace that's, regardless of what you think, is really, really small. That's the part I don't get.
You're not talking about Dylan Mulvaney now.
Yes, I am. I'm not.
You're talking about the marketing executive.
Well, yeah.
Who lost her job. That was the stupidest thing in the world. But you know what?
That's what I'm point.
I am teaching MBA courses. Why wasn't the president let go? She was let go, but they found another job for her in another company somehow.
Yeah.
But she was let go, and her cohort, who is male, was also let go. But understand, the people who should have been overseeing this company, was it multi-billion-dollar company,
right,
were out to lunch. And then when the president was asked about it, he knew nothing about this. And I swear to you, I've said this many times in my MBA classes, this should be a case study in Harvard Business Review. He was out to lunch. He didn't know when the media said, "How did you do this? How did this happen?" He didn't know. And ultimately, he still has his job.
Yes, he does.
Now, if this were my company, he'd be out on the street. You know, I learned a lot. I was in New York when Donald Trump was running his empire. I learned so much from that man.
Yeah.
There was one time when there was a little bit of water. He was showing people around at Trump Tower, and there was a little bit of water, a little puddle in the middle of the floor. And he stopped what he was saying. He said, "Who is responsible for this?" So this poor custodian comes out and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry." He said, "Get this cleaned up immediately." So he got it cleaned up, and then he said, "You're fired." And you say, "Oh, this poor custodian, blah, blah, blah." But you know what? Donald Trump would have had his neck on the line had somebody slipped and fallen.
This is the problem. I have this, Gilda, I have this problem. I've had this problem my entire life. I was a former classical musician where the standards for competency are very, very high. And the problem I've always had is that what point do you give somebody a break, and at what point do you say, "Well, no, we got to cut this off. This wasn't good enough," you know? And so,
Well,
you know, I understand
take somebody with gonads.
Yeah, that's right. It does take somebody with gonads.
And I got them.
Yeah.
I've got them. Matter of fact, my graduate students bought me a beautiful gift in a velvet box. I opened it up, brass balls. They gave me brass balls.
I was going to say that as a joke.
No, this is no joke.
No, it isn't.
I held on to those brass balls.
Yeah.
They said, what we have learned from you, we couldn't have learned in a textbook.
Yeah, no, but it's a real thing about,
That's my South Bronx moxie. I learned that all in the South Bronx.
So you're living in Scottsdale now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a residence in New York at all?
I did, and I'm not living there anymore.
Yeah.
New York has become a pit hole. It's just not what it was.
Yeah.
And I miss being on Fox News. I was on Fox News for years. I miss all those people. And this was before it became totally political. But Joy Behar once said to me, "Dr. Gilda, you have the talk shows were kind of drying up." And she said, "You really have to talk about politics." I said, "I'm a healer. I'm not a politician. And now look what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I'm writing books like this."
That's right.
So go figure.
Yeah.
You think you know what's going to happen in your life, and then
I know
somehow it doesn't.
Yeah, I used to work for a conservative news organization a few years ago, and I started these podcasts as political podcasts. But I decided the market was saturated, so I kind of pivoted more toward personality interviews. I don't know if you've noticed, you have personality.
No. I was married to a man once who heard me on radio. I was a baby. I was in my 20s. And he said, "You ought to stop laughing so much on the radio shows." I said, "Why? This is me. This is my personality." He said, "Too much fun. And not enough. Why don't you be the professor?" Well, you know what? He left skid marks.
Yeah.
Bye. See ya.
But I don't have to tell you the best, it's if you can entertain and inform somebody at the same time, you're winning.
Well, that's what I do. It's called entertainment.
Yeah, entertainment. That's I'm going to use that if you don't mind. I'll credit you.
Okay.
But yeah, entertainment.
Okay, thank you.
That's good. That's really good.
That's what I call it. Because if we're not, I'm an educator. If we're not imparting information that people can use, that they can use after you're gone, then you're not doing your job. But if you're not making it entertaining, because we're all in competition with TikTok, then you're still not doing your job.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, have you been on TikTok yourself? Have you ever gone on there and looked?
Yeah. I'm on TikTok. You will see me.
It's amazing.
I'm on TikTok. I'm on everything. TikTok and X and LinkedIn. I have almost 50,000 followers on LinkedIn. That's pretty impressive. That's a lot.
Well, that's because partly it's like you have a very professional thing going on. That's kind of a professional environment.
Well, it's professional, but it's all entertainment.
Yeah.
And if you go to my website, drgilda.com, you'll see what it's all about. I mean, life is all about strategy. I follow Sun Tzu and all of his tenets. And with that, I put in the tabloid news. And you know what? Guys have said to me, oh, when I heard Howie Mandel, some other famous names are all depressed, I felt so much better because I've been suffering from depression for so long. Now, if I had just said, the guy down the street is depressed, that wouldn't have hit it.
Right.
But suddenly, these people, these icons they see on TV are depressed just like they are. Oh my God. I have to take that to heart because Dr. Gilda is right. First, you're depressed, you hold it in, and then you commit suicide. It's got to end.
Yeah, it does. It does have to end. You're right, because it's just unbelievable. The whole thing's unbelievably tragic, and we're a human species, and we're not stupid. We're not supposed to be anyway. You know.
Well, we're not. Men in particular will not ask for help. You know, this hurts me so badly. I say to a guy, listen, why don't you go for some counseling? I don't need counseling. I don't need this. And the people who I counsel are heads of countries, heads of organizations, and heads of households. So I run the gamut. But these are all people who have enough sense to come to me. But will they hear what they must do? I was on a radio show, and I said to this guy had just left his wife, and he was miserable. And as I said earlier, men need relationships more than women do.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, this is what you have to do now. He said, where am I going to meet women? And I said, you should be off the market for now. You've got to take apart what happened in this relationship, because if you don't, I guarantee you are going to find the same type of woman again, just in a different body. And he was so upset. He said, I'm supposed to be put on ice? I can't do that. I said, what is your alternative? He hung up on me.
Gilda, do you think that relationships break up usually over really petty reasons?
I think the big reasons are the reasons that they don't discuss. Everything's petty when you break up, but the real deep things are the things that are not discussed. And that's the biggest pity of all. If you cannot be real, and I said real men don't go woke, but real women have to give men their space without telling them, oh, that's not right. You feel that? You shouldn't feel that way. Or cancel them for feeling that way. So I'm hard on women too, because we haven't given our men enough to make them want to expose their feelings. And that's the problem.
I shouldn't share this, but I had heart surgery about 4 years ago, and it's pretty it's pretty serious. And the night before, I sat down with my wife, and basically I wanted to tell her how much I loved her in case something went wrong. And she said the one thing she said to me is she said, you've never told me what to do, and I took. Well, my point is. Maybe we all need to take a little more libertarian point of view here. Humans, the whole history of humanity is people trying to control other people. Maybe you just shouldn't try. Just When
will we all grow up and recognize you can't control anybody? The only one you have control over is you.
Yeah.
And if you don't point the finger at yourself and say, what am I supposed to learn? Therapy. you go in for therapy, and this is why I do things entirely differently. And I've had plenty of therapy, but you go in for therapy and they say, "Oh, what is your problem?" I don't do that. I say, "Where is your power?" Whole different shift.
What do most people say to that? Where is most people's powers? It doesn't matter whether you're
They are
well-adjusted or not.
shocked. Most people are shocked to even hear that question. Wow, I never thought of it before. And now we get into some really pertinent information. Not what your mother did to you and your father did to you, and how you're still feeling sorrowful, and how you're walking around with like one big woundology. Instead of that, you're saying, "My power. Wow. What can I do well? What can I do wisely? What can I do better?"
The one thing I have noticed, and correct me if you don't agree with this, is that most people want to control other people because they either can't or don't want to control themselves. That's the one thing I've seen.
Isn't that typical? Of course.
Yeah.
It's called projection onto
Yeah.
somebody else, that which you won't do yourself.
Right. Right. Gilda, I'm going to let you go. I can't tell. First of all, I really hope you'll come back. I've enjoyed this immensely.
I'd love to. This is so much fun.
And we finally got this whole sound and all the text shit working, so that's good.
I don't know how. That's thanks to you, Jim.
Yeah, well,
I
I've
couldn't
been
have
doing
done
this a
it.
long time, so I know all the tricks. So, and all right, hold your book up one more time. We're going to put it on our blog, and we'll put a link up to your website. And your website's
Real
really
men
don't go woke. That's right. Your website's really fascinating. It is. There's a lot of stuff there.
Thank
Also,
you.
I'm glad you keep your blog up. A lot of people don't do that, and that's pretty cool, because
Yeah, that's a lot of work. Everything is a
is.
lot of work.
Everything's a lot of
Keeping
work.
up the social media, keeping up the blog, But if I don't talk to people in need, then I'm a fraud.
Yeah.
And nothing about me is fraudulent. I have to be transparent because that's what I'm teaching. And if I don't walk in my own shoes, I don't walk my talk, then what am I doing?
And I appreciate you for knowing your mission too. That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you take care. All right. We'll talk to you soon. I really appreciate
Thank you,
this a lot.
Jim. God bless you.
Thank
Stay
you.
healthy.
You too. Thank you. That was Dr. Gilda Carle from Scottsdale, Arizona. All right, we had to really jury rig this thing here. The sound you heard was actually through her iPhone. Believe it or not, it was not through her camera or through the mic or her mic or whatever. We had to. The audio was through a telephone line, and the video was through her computer, and it worked. Not only that, it pretty much synced up. That was actually the thing I was really amazed at. The sound and the picture were pretty much in sync. It was pretty cool. So anyway, that was really entertaining. She's a very entertaining woman. I understand why she's been so successful. 19 books. My God. I mean, God in heaven, I can't even write one. So her current book's called Real Men Don't Go Woke, and you can buy it at Amazon. We'll link to that on our blog at jimatnight.com. Now, the thing about our website, if you've ever been there, on the front page, we publish the schedule about a couple weeks out of the guests coming on the show. I talked about this last night, and we didn't have too much time to talk about this at the top of the show, but I've been very, very happy about the fact that we're booked 1 month out, and we're having no trouble getting guests. I mean, it's really, really pretty. That kind of all happened all of a sudden. I take that as a compliment. I'm very happy to impart that to you. I am. So yes, but we'll have her back on soon. That's pretty cool. She's I think what my generation would call her a pistol. All right. Now you can call in 325 call Jim 325-225-5546, and also send us a text message if you want at 408-458-5088. It's on the bottom of the screen here scrolling by. Please do that if you want. I was reading I read all the trades. I read a lot of stuff. I have about 100 news sources I plow through, not every day, but basically every week to educate myself to do the show. And I read the radio and television trades too. And one guy he's doing a column and he's saying, well, the standard thing about calling in and radio, and this applies here because there aren't many television shows you can call into, and a lot of people would say this is a radio show with a picture. I've decided after doing 240 of these that's actually not true, but a lot of people would say that is the fact you have to pitch a topic to get people to call in, and I don't want to do this. I don't. It's like, I want you to call in and be the guest, and you can call in and talk about anything you want. Anything. I do not care. We'll talk about it. Your personal life, what you cooked for dinner, I really don't care. And if you're into cooking, we can talk about that too. I mean, it's just there's too much. People are too varied and too interesting to try to, it's like, oh, what do you think of abortion? Oh, the lines light up. I'm just not into that. I'm not. And heck, it's my show, so I get to do what I want. All right, so we got a couple of things here before we leave here. First of all, there's a survey done in the UK that came out today about how many people in college use AI to cheat on their studies and exams. It's huge. It's enormous. And the people who did the study estimate only 10% of the people who are actually getting caught. Only 10% of people are actually getting caught. So even the 10% is enormous. It's unbelievable. I don't know. And so Mark Beckman was supposed to be on the show last night. He did not show up. I still haven't figured out. Still don't know why. But we've had people on the show about AI before, and we'll continue to, because I find it a really fascinating subject. The thing is, people's thoughts on AI are all over the board. A lot of people think it's going to literally destroy humanity, and a lot of people like, no big deal. You run the gamut. My thing has been that I think that, and they alluded to this in this article too, cause and effect, really interesting. But I think that it's going to lead to some massive unemployment in the next 20 years. That's what I think. And when this article, they said that some of the students they talked to, their justification for cheating is they said, well, AI is going to take my job anyway, so I might as well just use it to get ahead. I don't know, but we got a problem, because now in the next 2 years, they figure that these AI large language models, that most of them will end up being smarter than any person on Earth. And I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating in case you've never watched a show before, about the fact that most people in this field do not think, and it depends how you define these terms, but they do not think that AI will become sentient or conscious or will have a soul, that sort of thing, But that's different from intelligence. And whether they're going to outstrip human intelligence, they're almost there. It's almost, we're less than 5 years away from that, where these things are going to be significantly smarter than any person ever was. And then on top of that, if you build into into a robot, if you build it into a robot, like a humanoid robot with arms and legs, and it can walk around, at that point you even have somebody who can do physical labor. Somebody, it's not a person, but it's not going to complain. It's not going to want a vacation. It's not going to want a raise. It's not going to want anything. It will just simply, it's a slave basically, but it won't care and it won't know because it's a machine, but it's still smarter than anybody you could hire. And that's scary. That's really scary. So, and I've already said this too. I think in a lot of ways, college degrees have already become worthless. First of all, especially bachelor's degrees, basically you put in the time, you get one. That's all there is to it. There's virtually no one is denied a bachelor's degree. Now, that said, I have a nephew of mine who was kicked out of a major university because his grades were too low. And then you think about how little this happens. Well, my family's special. What do I say? Yeah, but it's true. It hardly ever happens. That hardly ever happens, especially for bachelor's degrees. and masters too. Now, doctorates a little better. There are people who have been denied their doctorates for simply not doing good enough work. That does happen. Not very often, but it does happen. But when it comes to bachelor's and master's degrees, basically you put in your time to get one, which means that anyone can get one. If you have enough money to go to school and you put in the time to go, it doesn't matter. You might end up with D's and F's, but you will still get your degree. And so if that's the case, what does that say about you? Nothing. It's what I call the National Enquirer effect. This goes back to the 1980s. In the 1980s, the National Enquirer tabloid, which barely exists now, but pre-internet, magazines and tabloids were big deals. In the 1980s, the National Enquirer decided it was going to start doing some really serious investigative journalism, which they did. But the problem was the rest of the magazine was filled with gossip and crap and lies. And so then the question becomes, well, how do you know what to believe? And you don't. You don't know what to believe. We don't know whether the National Enquirer was lying about what was going on in the White House or not. We have no idea. Now we have a mainstream media that has the same problem, very similar problem, because they've been lying for the last 4 or 5 years about everything politically so much that now people just don't believe them anymore. I've said this, and Dr. Gilda was alluded to this about the fact that Fox News's ratings or viewership is 6 times what CNN's is. Not 60%, 6 times, 600% bigger than CNN's. Because there's a perception that, and I won't say they didn't lie, but let's say they lied way less. That's a better way to put it. So people figured that out. So I don't know. Interesting stuff going on here. But yeah, students in the UK have been caught, and I'm sure the students here in the United States are doing it too. I'm sure they are. And then the other thing I want to bring up is how far ahead the show is. Our little show here is on the news. Now, last week we talked about the what's called the Pentagon Pizza Theory. And that is, there's this thing called the Pentagon Pizza Tracker. It's an app that tracks the business at the 5 pizza places that are closest to the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. One of them is at Domino's, the other 4 are mom and pops. But they're the 5 places that basically the Pentagon orders pizzas from. And this app tracks their business. And just before Israel bombed Iran on Thursday night, the numbers went through the roof, and the implication was something's going on. These people know they're going to spend the night at the office. Well, that made the news today. We were a week ahead of that. So I just want to point that out. And this is what I want to talk about on the show. Is really I like doing this. Is that we talk about stuff that no one else talks about, and that's what I want to do. And then I was going to ask Dr. Gilda about this too. The other thing is, and I will talk about it now, is the Karen Reed trial. She was found not guilty today, and I have not talked about this at all up till now because I find this a very, very boring subject. But now it's fascinated me. Well, first of all, I have to say I assumed she was going to be found not guilty because it appears that she may or may not have ran over her boyfriend with a car, but she's so inebriated, and they did find her guilty of that. They did find her guilty of drunk driving. She was so inebriated, I don't know if she knows that she did it. I don't know if she did it on purpose or by accident. I don't think anyone's ever going to figure that out. She says she didn't do it at all. I don't think she knows. I think she was so drunk it didn't matter. And the things you're talking about beyond a reasonable doubt, well, that's plenty of reasonable doubt. And for that reason alone, I thought she was going to be found not guilty. So the thing that fascinates me about this trial and trials like it is the enormous number of people that hang out outside the courthouse. And one of the reporters for Fox News said there were people there that were it's not just that they were there for the verdict. There are people that were there for every day of the trial. And, where do people have time to do this? It's like, what is your life about if this is what you're going hanging out in front of trials, with signs for a verdict? Either way, I mean, does it even matter? And then the Fox reporter also said that some of these people were at a previous trial, which was a mistrial. It's like, really, seriously. And we're talking about, I don't know what it was on an average day, but today it was obvious there were hundreds of people out there. And it was, once again, I think this woman got a little attention because she's kind of hot. I mean, I don't understand any other thing. Otherwise, she just seems like just an ordinary person. Kind of seems that maybe has her shit together a little bit. I don't know. She was obviously drunk out of her mind that night her boyfriend died. So that's obvious. And not only, like I said, they found her not guilty of murder and, all the accounts regarding hitting him, but they found her guilty of drunk driving. They did find her guilty of that. Apparently, she was sentenced to 1 year of probation for drunk driving. Yeah, she was drunk. So, but anyway, that's the reason I bring this up is I'm just fascinated by the number of people who hang out at this stuff and where do they get the time? It's like the same people that went to the No Kings rallies this last Saturday. Like, what point are you making? Well, the point is people are peacefully protesting, but in contemporary society, people are doing this now to try to make people think that there's a majority of people that the idea is kind of to flood the media zone with all these pictures of all these and supposedly nationwide there were millions of people that did show up for this, millions. Now I need to point this out though, every single survey said that as far as their opinions politically about what's going on, they're in the minority. Every single one. These people are in the minority. They're trying to convince the public through the media that there's a majority of people that think this way, and there isn't. Simple as that. You can go on, you can talk to your blue in the face. The one thing about Saturday is that with only a couple of exceptions, they were actually peaceful protests, and God bless them for that. That's good. This thing in and that was the exception. Los Angeles, still more violence, still more looting. That was one of the very few exceptions on Saturday. And doesn't it bother you that the media and local politicians in LA are still trying to convince people, although this isn't violence, the whole mostly peaceful protest thing, from George Floyd in 2020. And you got cars that happened to CNN twice, where they had reporters standing in front of burning cars saying, "Oh, this is mostly peaceful." Yeah, and people say, well, maybe it was mostly peaceful. It's like those people in LA saying, well, you don't understand. The whole town is on fire. Well, no. First of all, physically, it's a very, very large town. Okay. And even I live in Minneapolis here, and the George Floyd riots didn't come even close to my neighborhood. It was just another day here in the house. It was. But that doesn't mean there isn't shit going on. And the thing is, all that shit is bad. It's just when you're starting multiple cars on fire, lines of Waymo taxis, it's like, oh, Jesus. At any rate, that's why people protest now, is to convince people that there's actually more people that think what they think there really are. It really is. I can't tell you in George Washington's day, I think people did it to actually demonstrate how many people, it was a legitimate demonstration, which I suppose where the word comes from, of how many people agree with a certain side. Now it's to convince the media and the general public that more people think that way than really do. That's my personal opinion. And this show runs on my personal opinion. And that's why I do it. And that's also why I don't post to social media. You want to know what I think? Tune in. That's what I think. Okay. All right. And finally, this is really weird. And this is from Coast to Coast AM. And I don't listen to Coast to Coast AM. But it's the Art Bell's whole show now. It's hosted by George Norrie in the middle of the night. It's on like 700 radio stations in America in the middle of the night from like 1 to 5 a.m. Eastern. But they ran a story that in Texas, a man discovered without that he married, that his ex-girlfriend married him without his knowledge. And it's legit. It's a legal marriage. That she finagled this, and let me tell you how she did this. Okay, she said, "Excuse me." Well, he found out about it because she sent him a package, including the marriage certificate. So, and he's like, "Okay, how did this happen?" It happened because, all right. This is I read this. I understand this, but I gotta read this to you. All right. The ex-girlfriend somehow convinced a pastor to give his proverbial stamp of approval on the paperwork because they had filed for a marriage license. So they had to they had a filing for a marriage license, but they didn't get married. They broke up. But the marriage license, what do you got, 60 or 90 days? I suppose it depends on what state it is, to actually fulfill the license. Okay. But she convinced the pastor that to put his stamp of approval on the paperwork without the man being there, much less knowing about it. And then she filed the license with the county clerk, making their wedding official. And she got arrested for third-degree felony stalking. But the marriage was official. They were married. He got married and he didn't even know it. Oh, my God. I've been married 36 years. I don't know if I know it either. Yeah. Just an old fart guy complaining about about the ball and chain. Yeah. All right. I'm going. We're done. I want to thank Gilda Carle, Dr. Gilda Carle, for coming on here. That was very, very entertaining. So tomorrow night, what do we got tomorrow night? Hold on a second. I can't remember. Oh, Jennifer Oliver O'Connell's here. Now, she writes for Red State. She also writes a Substack blog called asthegirlturns.com. And she's going to be here for Juneteenth. It's actually Juneteenth. Now, for those of you who don't know, Juneteenth is a legitimate national holiday. It's the day in it was July 19th, 1865, when the last people, slaves in the United States, which were in Texas, found out that they were free. That was so. In other words, at that point, the entire country was notified that the Emancipation Proclamation was in place, which was signed on January 1st, 1863. So it took a year and a half. There's no media. It's like you had newspapers, and newspapers they travel by train, if anything. So there's no, I don't think there's any telegraph in the United States at all in 1863. I don't think so. But yeah, so it took a year and a half for word to get around. So that's the day that the last slaves in America found out they were free. And you couldn't do it on January 1st, 1863, because that's already a holiday. It'll just get lost. So anyway, Juneteenth is a legitimate national holiday, and rightly so. It's a big deal. The people finally found out that everyone in America finally realized that the slaves are no longer slaves. And we get a lot of crap for that. That was a terrible part of period in American life. But the fact of the matter is we did free slaves earlier than virtually any other country on earth. So, I don't know. That's a positive way to look at it, I guess, if you could put a positive spin on that, even though it's awful. And I do need to bring this up when it comes to reparations. Like, I master the obvious. There's not a single person alive today that was a slave in 1865. There, not a single one. Matter of fact, I don't even know if there's a single person alive who's a grandfather of one of those people. If I'm right, I know that the last person who was a slave under that law, I think, died in 1961, I think. Which would, because they were a tiny child and they lived to be like 103 years old. So I think that was it. That was it. The last person was a slave in the United States legally, or under that rule. So yeah, we're going to talk about that with her, and she's uniquely qualified. She is a black woman. And I tease her about that all the time. I tease her about the fact that she's an angry white woman. And she thinks that's very funny. And I do too. Because we just had did a whole show on angry white women. Thanks to Dr. Gilda Carle. So thank you very much, Dr. Carle. I want to thank you. We're coming back tomorrow night with Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. I want to thank you folks for watching. Couldn't do it without you. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are, and good night to you, wherever you may be. We'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Thank you.